Well, hey there, everybody. It's your boy, Mr. Perry. Here we are back at it. Today, we're going to be looking at Unit 2, Lesson 2, which is all about constructors. So let's dive right on in. So let's see. Let's start with this idea. Every single class has at least one constructor. And a constructor is a method that gets called every time you instantiate an object of that class. All right. So constructors are super important because if you don't have them, you can't have objects of a class. So down here, we're looking, here is our main method, and inside here we are creating an object of the cat class. So this command that you see right here, cat Nikki equals new cat, and then Nikki comma 3, this command calls the constructor to instantiate the variable Nikki of the cat class. So when you run this line of code, Java goes into here and finds the constructor public cat, string name int age, and this is what gets called by this line of code right here. So it kind of engages this, and then from there, a few things happen. So right here, here's where the constructor is defined by the programmer. And this is typically what you would see in this kind of a situation. Typically, it would say public cat string and name, comma, int age. And then inside, you would say this dot name equals name, and this dot age equals age. So what happens here is when I create this object of the cat class called Nikki, this engages the constructor. And up here, we've got private string name, private int age. Here's where our instance variables are declared, but notice it doesn't say equals something, right? We're just declaring these variables. So down here, when you call this constructor, Nikki and 3 get passed in as name and age. And these commands down here, this dot name equals name, what this does is it takes this variable up here, name, which is in blue, and it sets it equal to be this name, which is being passed in, which is in green. And then the same thing happens up here. Again, up here we just declared the variable age, but down here, this dot age, which is in blue, here we are instantiating or initializing the variable age and setting it equal to whatever age gets passed in over here. So 3 gets passed in as age, and then that is used to actually initialize the instance variable for this particular object. So that's basically how constructors work. And this kind of shows you the interplay between when you call a constructor versus what's happening behind the scenes in the class file. All right, constructors always have the same name as the class. So if you were looking at the cat class, public class cat, then your constructor is going to just be public cat. And then over here, you see public class turtle. So this is the turtle class. And then here are the instance variables. But then down here, public turtle, here is the constructor. So again, just notice that this matches and this matches, and you're using Pascal case like usual. Now you're just going to be bombarded with a bunch of vocabulary. The rest of this lesson is really just all about learning some vocabulary. So we're going to start with what's called an overloaded constructor. This is when a class includes more than one constructor with different constructor signatures. So down here, you've got public cat with nothing in the parentheses. And then this is happening down here. It says public cat, and we've got string name int age. So let's go ahead and break this down. This class has 2 different constructor signatures. This line that you see right here, public cat, that is the signature for this constructor. Down here, public cat string name int age, that's the signature for that constructor. And because you have 2 of them and they are different from one another, you would say that the cat class has an overloaded constructor. All right. And let's see, constructor signatures. When you call a constructor in main, so here you can see we've got 2 constructors being called, or the constructor being called twice. What happens is the information that you put in the parentheses will determine which code executes in the class file. The class file, of course, is over here. So let's start with, oh yeah, and then also there is this new keyword, which is very important. The word new is a keyword in Java that basically tells it, okay, I'm creating a new object. And basically we'll call its constructor. So that's why the word new always appears before this last part right here. All right, so back to what we were talking about overloaded constructors and a constructor signature. So here you've got cat stray1 equals new cat. So let's say we picked up a cat, a stray cat, and we don't know anything about it. We don't know its name. We don't know how old it is. So it might make sense to have a constructor like this that basically sets the name to be unknown and sets the age to be null. Basically, we just don't know what these values are. So cat stray1 equals new cat with nothing in the parentheses is going to call this constructor because there's nothing in the parentheses here. And it's going to go ahead and initialize the instance variables name and age with this information that you see here. However, down here, let's say you get another cat and you know its name and you know how old its age is, you could create that object. And since you're passing in Nikki, which is a string, and 3, which is an int, that matches this constructor that you see down here. It matches this constructor signature. So in that case, Nikki would be passed in and initialized instantiated as, no, initialized, sorry, for the instance variable name, and then 3 would become the age for that particular object. All right, a little bit more vocab here. When you call a constructor in main and you give it values inside the parentheses, these are what are called actual parameters. They're also referred to as arguments. And so anything that's listed in parentheses when you call the constructor in the main method, those are your actual parameters or your arguments. Now these become what are called formal parameters. When you go inside your class file and you go to that constructor, anything that's listed in the parentheses here, those are called formal parameters. All right, so what is listed in the class file in the constructor are your formal parameters. And that leads us to this, one of the last concepts that we're getting into, which is called call by value. So when you call a constructor, you're using what's called call by value, which means that Java makes copies of the actual parameters or arguments. So Java is going to make a copy of the string Nikki and a copy of the integer 3, and it's going to pass the copies of those values into the constructor as formal parameters. And for this to work, it is essential that the data types match and that they get passed into the constructor in the correct order. So Nikki is a string, 3 is an int, that matches okay right here. So call by value is going to work just fine in this scenario. However, if I tried to do this, cat Nikki equals new cat with 3 first and then Nikki, that doesn't match. So this would cause an error. So this is all important stuff to know because it's all a part of the little idiosyncrasies of Java that we need to become aware of. Okay. By the way, this constructor that you see up here that has nothing in the parentheses, this is what you call a no argument constructor. And this is when a constructor contains no formal parameters. And it's similar to what you might call a default mode. When you create an object and you don't know any information about that object, it's common practice to just go ahead and set those values to be kind of their default values. So the string could be unknown in this case, and then again, the age could be null, or you could set the age to 0 or something like that. So those are always options that you have. And then down here, this is called a parameterized constructor. That's when a constructor contains formal parameters. So when you have an overloaded constructor, the one that has nothing in it is your no argument constructor. The one that has the information in it is your parameterized constructor. And finally, we're going to look at what is called a null object. So sometimes you declare an object of a class, but you don't actually initialize it until later. So right here you see cat stray1 equals null. So this would be, let's say you pick up a stray cat, and again, you know absolutely nothing about it. So, but you know you have a stray. So one option that you have is to go ahead and set it equal to a null value, which means you're reserving memory space in Java, but you're not actually putting any information in there. You're just basically reserving an area in memory for this particular object. So stray1 would point to this area in Java memory. Um, but then let's say you do figure out, or let's say you give it a name later and then you determine that it's 6 years old, you could then at that point, stray1 equals new cat fuzzball, comma 6. At that point, you could initialize it later. But there is such a thing as a null object. And if a object is created and set to null, just know that, right here in this line of code, stray1 is pointing to an area in memory that has no information. But down here, that's when you would actually be adding that information to that area in memory. So this line declares the stray1 object and creates a reference in memory, but doesn't instantiate the object with any data. This down here, you now have the option of instantiating the object using the new keyword and actual parameters. Okay, and then just a little bit of information about the turtle class, because you're going to have some more work in this lesson with the turtle class. The world class has constructors. It has a no argument constructor, so and a parameterized constructor, so it is overloaded. The no argument constructor sets the screen to be 640 by 480 pixels. So that's the default mode. It just basically creates a 640 by 480 world. However, you have the opportunity to change that. You can instantiate a world object for the turtle to live inside. And you can determine how large or how small you want the screen to be. So this one right here creates a 300 by 400 pixel world. And the turtle class constructor. So if you wanted to create objects of the turtle class and place them in these different worlds, these different environments, if you did turtle t1 equals new turtle world with just your just with no extra information, it's going to put the turtle, it's going to actually place the turtle in the middle of the screen. So when you instantiate that turtle object, it basically automatically sets the X position and the Y position to be the middle of the screen. However, you can also change that. You might want to add another turtle object and maybe have that turtle start in a different area of the screen. So you have this option. You can say turtle t2 equals new turtle 50 comma 100 comma world 1. So what that's going to do is this is going to place your t2 turtle object in that same world, but it's going to put it at 50 comma 100. The X position will be 50 and the Y position will be 100. So it won't be in the exact same position as your first turtle. So you've got some options in the turtle class when it comes to what constructors you want to call, and it gives you a little bit more flexibility in terms of where you're going to place your turtles. All right, well, it's time for lesson review. Let's go ahead and hit our highlights. Constructors are a special method that gets defined by the programmer and then called each time an object is instantiated in main. Each constructor has a unique signature, and if a class has more than one constructor, it is said to be overloaded. Class name, comma, class name, object name equals new class name with any kind of information. This is the syntax for how you call a constructor from your main method. A no argument constructor has nothing identified in the parentheses. A parameterized constructor has at least one formal parameter listed inside the parentheses. And a class can have multiple unique constructors. Finally, actual parameters or arguments in the main method become the formal parameters for the constructor using call by value, which makes copies of the values being passed into the constructor. Well, there you go, guys. Like I promised, you were going to get kind of a heavy vocab lesson here, but Hopefully with a little bit of practice, this will all make sense. And thanks for watching. As always, I'll see you in class.